Ben, we're going to get straight in on the importance of facts and truth and genuine media. And it seems to me, at least, that the government is doing everything it can to take utter and total control of free press and media.
Absolutely, Brian. Yes, we're in a war, a media war. We have been for some time. It's a war for meaning, a war for truth, a war for our minds, ultimately, and most importantly, a war for the minds of the nation's children. Let's hear from Chris Morris, CEO of Full Fact, speaking to the Lords Committee on Communications and Digital in Westminster last week.
Recently, a report came out from the Commission into Countering Online Conspiracy Theories in Schools, which was set up by the Pears Commission. I was part of that commission. Two of the recommendations from it I think are worth highlighting. One is that teaching on conspiracy theories should start in primary school. There's no point in waiting until the age of 13 when 77% of 11 and 12-year-olds have already got social media accounts. And it's not too soon to start at the age of 5. And Hannah's already mentioned Finland, and we're probably not the first people to come before this committee and suggest that Finland might be quite a good example to follow because they seem to get a lot of things right. And they teach children from a very early age how to recognise potentially harmful information. The second thing is, though, is that it's really important to empower teachers because one of the findings of the Commission was that many teachers did not feel they had permission to discuss sometimes sensitive issues of conspiracy theories. If a pupil came into school, for example, and said, well, my dad or my mum said this, does the teacher have permission from the school, from the local authority, from the Department for Education do they have the permission to take on what that parent has said? It's a very difficult position for the teacher to be put in, but I think it's really important that if we're going to set up a successful system for teachers to feel that they are empowered to make those decisions. Separately, I think it's also really important to say that all of these things need to happen outside school as well, and they need to happen at all ages. I mean, the government is, I think, this government and the previous government rightly focusing primarily on young people, on children of school age. But, for example, when we carried out focus groups last summer on misinformation and what it means to people, the overwhelming answer that almost everyone gave was, oh, Uncle Stan or Auntie Betty got scammed by somebody online. That's what misinformation means to people. And when they then went on to say, well, how do you think we can counter that? Is they need to be taught how to understand, to operate in a world which is moving so fast and where they feel left behind. So while schools and young people are incredibly important, we shouldn't forget the rest of society as well.
Ben, truly astonishing clip. I'm really glad that you brought this in to the start of the news today, because what are we dealing with? Well, we thought they were soap manufacturers, but now apparently they are to help reframe the children. So what is he talking about? Indoctrination, reframing the teachers, breaking the bond between parents and the children so the state can get its opinion in. This is one of the most dangerous speeches that I've actually heard for some time, Ben.
It's mind-blowing, isn't it? Mums and dads, uncles and aunties are the problem, and empowered teachers is the solution, and they're going to be able to make decisions about the re-education of your kids, essentially, and course-correcting them when they make misstatements or have misconceptions about the way that the world is. I mean, it's absolutely astonishing, to be honest with you, and also right the way down to 5-year-olds. You're talking about re-educating or indoctrinating early years school children. Right? They have absolutely no right to be doing this. I mean, it's absolutely astonishing. Even if he's referencing it happening in other countries, he talks about Finland. Doesn't matter if they're doing it in Finland. They shouldn't be doing it in Finland if that's what they are indeed doing in Finland. And who is he? So that's Chris Morris. So we talked about Full Fact a lot over the years. I looked at the UK Column website earlier, and the first interaction that UK Column had with Full Fact was in 2012, which is basically when they were set up. So we were straight out the gate. Brian sent a very strongly worded letter to them because they had, frankly, misinformed the public about a story that we'd put out, right, even back then. And essentially, these organisations have been established in order to deal with problems like the UK Column, and we are a problem to the establishment narrative, the establishment agenda. Diane did some excellent reporting on them last year. I recommend going to have a look at that. But essentially what we're dealing with here is the vested interests and the financial backing of the BBC, the World Economic Forum, the UN Sustainable Development Goals, Google, Meta, big tech companies, a bunch of supposedly charitable foundations like the Esme Fairbairn Foundation and others who are seeking to control the minds of the nation's children. Right. And they are not just informing policy. Yeah. So that's Chris Morris talking to the House of Lords in Westminster last week, obviously by information. They've asked him to come in and share his opinion. And he was very proudly the first fact checker at the BBC. And he was doing that roll through COVID. So a precursor to Mariana Spring and BBC Verify. He was the man who set that whole programme up. But he actually references this report, which comes from the Pears Foundation. That's the Pears family, the soap manufacturer of Pears Soap, very famously, and very wealthy family who now have a foundation dealing with these issues. They issued this report last year about countering online conspiracies in schools. We really don't want kids going on the internet and finding out information that is inconvenient to us. But they're not just advising on policy. We can actually see here this report was commissioned by these two individuals, Sir Trevor Pears, who's the scion of the Pears family, but also Sir Mufti Hamid Patel at the bottom, who subsequent to this report being issued has actually been installed as the interim chair of Ofsted. So he's actually now running the education system. And we're now going to hear a little bit about what is actually going on in the education system at the moment, what's happening with British children.
Ben, thank you very much.